What if the brightest mind of our time and the author who inspired generations of millionaires shared the same secret? Not a quick trick, but a principle capable of redefining what you understand as wealth and purpose. YoungHoon Kim, recognized as the man with the highest IQ in the world, and Napoleon Hill, a master at revealing the power of the mind, converge on a truth that few can see. This secret is not a rigid method, nor a step-by-step guide to follow blindly. It is something deeper, almost invisible, that connects reason and faith, strategy and courage, action and meaning. A key that, when used, turns any goal into an inevitable destiny. And the most surprising part, it may be closer to you than you think. Today, you will learn not only the story behind these extraordinary minds, but also the hidden link that unites them. A link that, when understood, not only builds fortunes, but gives them a purpose so solid that nothing can tear it down. Get ready for a revelation that can forever change the way you see success, choices, and destiny. There is a secret that few dare to investigate, an invisible code that links ordinary people to extraordinary results. It's not just about money, nor just about purpose. It's about the rare combination that produces both in a lasting way. Some call it destiny, others call it applied science. But for those who understand, it's like holding the key to a vault that renews itself every day. Imagine living in a state where every decision seems guided by a higher intelligence, yet perfectly rational. It's as if fear loses its grip and faith becomes a constant fuel. This path has been walked by brilliant minds throughout history, and, surprisingly, it doesn't depend on where you were born, but on something you can activate today. The most curious thing is that this code is not hidden in a secret book or guarded by a select group of people. It's in plain sight, but rarely noticed. What sets apart those who find it is the willingness to see beyond the obvious. And if you stay with me until the end, you'll discover how to apply this in your life to transform not only your bank account, but your entire story. If this journey has already sparked your curiosity, like, comment, and share this video so more people can awaken. YoungHoon Kim is not just a name on the list of the world's most intelligent people. He is the holder of an estimated IQ of 210, a level so rare that science hardly finds comparable records. From an early age, he displayed an unusual ability to understand complex patterns and solve problems that would challenge even the most experienced minds. But what impresses most is not the number, but how he uses this ability to create solutions with real impact. Throughout his journey, Kim has not limited himself to accumulating theoretical knowledge. He has applied his intelligence to explore topics ranging from physics to philosophy, always seeking answers that connect intellect to practical life. His worldview is not restricted to calculations or cold theories. He believes that all reasoning should ultimately generate value for people. And it's at this point that his story begins to align with something greater. The most intriguing part is that despite his genius, Kim lives by a simple principle: intelligence without purpose is wasted. This conviction leads him to constantly seek the intersection between logic and meaning. And it was precisely this search that put him in tune with a century-old philosophy that has already transformed thousands of lives. Napoleon Hill is more than a renowned author. He is an architect of winning mentalities. His book, Think and Grow Rich, published in 1937, not only sold millions of copies, but shaped the way leaders, entrepreneurs, and visionaries think about success. He spent more than 20 years interviewing and studying some of the greatest names of his time, such as Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and Andrew Carnegie, to decipher patterns that turn dreams into reality. Hill's difference was not in ready-made formulas, but in his ability to translate the essence of human triumph into simple, applicable principles. His work was not just about making money, but about creating a life with meaning, purpose, and impact. He believed that true wealth can only be sustained when it is born from a mindset aligned with solid values. Even decades after his death, Hill's ideas remain timeless. They cross generations, cultures, and economic contexts, reaching minds. Like that of YoungHoon Kim, who finds in his teachings not only logic, but also a moral compass. And it is in this unlikely meeting that a powerful revelation is born, ready to be unveiled. YoungHoon Kim grew up in South Korea, a country that, in just a few decades, rose from the devastation of war to become one of the world's most innovative centers. In a culture marked by discipline, the relentless pursuit of knowledge, and respect for traditions, his mind found fertile ground to flourish. From an early age, he was encouraged to go beyond the expected, exploring not only science, but also philosophy and spirituality. Napoleon Hill, on the other hand, was born in 1883 in the Appalachian Mountains. During a time of deep social and economic transformation in the United States, raised in a setting of simplicity and, at times, scarcity. He developed the ability to see opportunities where most saw limitations. His contact with Andrew Carnegie was the turning point that led him to deeply investigate how brilliant minds turn difficulties into springboards for success. The contrast between their origins is clear. On one side, an Asian genius shaped by modernity and technology. On the other, a Western thinker formed by the hardships and simplicity of the early 20th century. But it is precisely in this difference that an unexpected point of convergence is found, capable of teaching timeless lessons to anyone willing to learn. At first glance, it seems unlikely that YoungHoon Kim and Napoleon Hill would have anything in common beyond above-average intelligence. However, upon closer observation, a powerful link emerges. Both understood that true success is born from the union between mental clarity and a higher purpose. For them, thinking brilliantly means nothing if that thinking is not aligned with a clear destiny. Kim uses his genius to solve complex problems, but always asks, does this create real impact? Hill, on the other hand, spent his life studying how to direct the human mind to achieve extraordinary results. The common point is that both treat the mind as an instrument that needs daily tuning, a conscious process that requires discipline and vision. This intersection between logical reasoning and intentional purpose is rare, but when it occurs, it creates an almost irresistible power. It's like aligning the direction and speed of a ship. Without that, the journey may be fast, but without a destination. And it is at this point that the secret connecting their paths is found, a secret that, when applied, can completely transform how someone builds wealth and meaning. YoungHoon Kim's brilliance is not limited to an impressive IQ number. It is rooted in the fascinating functioning of the human brain. Science calls neuroplasticity the ability we have to reshape neural connections throughout life. This means that even without an exceptional IQ, anyone can expand their cognitive potential if they know how to train the mind intentionally. Studies show that habits like daily reading, solving challenging problems, and deep reflection strengthen areas of the brain responsible for decision-making and creativity. It's like training a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger and more efficient it becomes. Kim has always dedicated time to this mental training, which explains his ability to deal with complex information with clarity and speed. Napoleon Hill, although he did not use scientific terms like neuroplasticity, perfectly understood the idea. For him, constructive thinking, maintaining positive mental images, and acting with discipline were practical ways to train the brain for success. The bridge between science and practice is right there. Anyone can learn to shape their own mind to create extraordinary results, provided they are willing to follow a conscious process. For Napoleon Hill, success was not an isolated event, but a mental state cultivated day after day. He identified that successful people carry a unique combination of self-confidence, clarity of purpose, and perseverance. This triad creates an inner force that resists external obstacles, turning challenges into stepping stones. It's as if every difficulty comes with a hidden key to the next level. YoungHoon Kim, in practical terms, applies the same principle. Even with a privileged intellect, he does not rely solely on intelligence to achieve results. He creates routines, sets goals, and maintains relentless focus. Because he understands that the mind, no matter how brilliant, will drift if not directed. Intelligence without discipline is like a river without banks. The water flows, but it doesn't generate enough force to move anything. The psychology of success, therefore, is less about what you know and more about how you use what you know. Both Hill and Kim show that it is not the absence of fear that drives you, but the ability to act despite it. And it is this mental structure that prepares the ground for uniting logic and spirituality in a way that few experience. YoungHoon Kim surprises many by speaking of faith with the same ease as he speaks of science. For him, believing in something greater does not weaken logical reasoning. On the contrary, it strengthens it. Faith gives him direction, while reason gives him map. It's like sailing through an unknown sea with the compass pointing to a destination and the nautical charts showing the way. Napoleon Hill also understood this bridge. In his studies, he discovered that great achievers not only had clear goals, but also an unshakable belief that they would achieve them. He called this applied faith, a force that turns ideas into reality through persistent action. This faith is not blind, but accompanied by conscious work and calculated decisions. The meeting of spirituality and logic creates an uncommon advantage. A person does not get lost in doubts when circumstances seem unfavorable. Hill and Kim show that when the mind understands the how and the heart is sure of the why, the path becomes inevitable. It is this fusion that opens the way for real transformation stories that can inspire and teach at the same time. A young Korean entrepreneur, inspired by YoungHoon Kim, decided to apply his intelligence not just to create technology, but to solve a social problem: lack of access to education in rural areas. In just a few years, he transformed a simple idea into a project that impacted thousands of students. He followed the principle of uniting strategy and purpose, and this multiplied his results. Similarly, Napoleon Hill told the story of a salesman who, after adopting the principles he taught, went from being just an employee to owning a chain of stores. The secret: absolute clarity of what he wanted, daily persistence, and the conviction that failure was only part of the process. He did not just seek to make money, but to create something that benefited people. These examples show that knowledge alone is not enough. It is necessary to apply, test, adjust, and believe. Both Kim and Hill teach that true transformation happens when action meets purpose. And it is at this intersection that the greatest challenge arises: overcoming the inner battles that try to make us give up. Inside each person, there is a silent battlefield. On one side, faith, which pushes forward and opens paths. On the other, fear, which paralyzes and creates excuses. YoungHoon Kim admits that even with a privileged intellect, he is not immune to this struggle. The difference is that he has learned to see fear as a sign that he is about to grow, not as a definitive barrier. Napoleon Hill described this conflict as the struggle between two opposing forces that inhabit the mind. He said, "The voice of doubt is insistent, but it can be silenced by the constant repetition of strengthening thoughts." For him, cultivating positive affirmations and visualizations was not just motivation. It was a practical strategy to program the brain to act despite fear. The decisive point is to realize that courage is not the absence of insecurity, but the decision to move forward even when it screams. When reason and emotion go to war, the winner is the one who can keep a clear vision of the goal. And it is exactly this skill that turns ordinary people into protagonists of their own journeys of overcoming. Every great transformation begins with a call. For some, it's a crisis. For others, an unexpected opportunity. YoungHoon, Kim, and Napoleon Hill, each in their own way, show that the true hero is the one who answers that call, even without knowing all the steps ahead. The courage to take the first step is what opens doors to unimaginable destinations. In Hill's narrative, each person is the hero of their own story, and victory begins in the mind before it manifests in reality. He compared this process to planting a seed. It must be watered, protected, and believed in before the fruits appear. Kim, with his logical approach, reinforces that persistence in cultivation is just as important as the initial vision. This journey is not linear. There are falls, doubts, and restarts. But it is precisely in these moments that the hero strengthens, learning lessons that are not in books. With each obstacle overcome, identity changes, and the person gets closer to the version of themselves they were called to be. At this point, practical tools become essential to accelerate progress. Napoleon Hill advocated the importance of having written goals reviewed every day. He believed that this simple act trained the brain to maintain focus, like an archer keeping his eyes on the target. YoungHoon Kim, though using different methods, also practices constant goal review. In his case, combining priority lists with logical analysis of results. This clarity prevents distraction and increases efficiency. Another powerful tool is the use of daily affirmations. Repeating phrases that reinforce your ability and purpose is not superstition. It's a mental training that reprograms automatic thought patterns. Hill recommended that these affirmations be specific and linked to concrete actions. Kim complements this principle with problem-solving exercises so that the brain associates belief with real competence. Finally, both agree on one point: recording. Lessons learned. Keeping a journal, whether on paper or digital, creates a progress map. That way, every step, success, or mistake becomes valuable data to improve the journey. Those who apply these tools discover that discipline does not restrict. It frees because it turns intention into measurable achievement. And science confirms this power. Neuroscience research shows that the human brain responds powerfully to repetition and visualization. A Harvard University study demonstrated that people who mentally visualize a skill activate the same brain areas as those who practice it physically. This explains why the techniques advocated by Napoleon Hill, such as daily visualization, have scientific backing. Another scientifically validated point is the relationship between writing and memory consolidation. Studies indicate that recording goals significantly increases the chances of achieving them, as it creates an internal commitment and activates brain circuits linked to motivation. YoungHoon Kim, even coming from a more logical field, acknowledges that this practice enhances strategic thinking and decision-making. In addition, research on neuroplasticity confirms that consistent habits reshape neural connections, strengthening cognitive and emotional skills. This means that discipline and deliberate practice are not just motivational philosophies. They are biological mechanisms that shape the mind for success. And when these mechanisms unite with a clear purpose, the result is a turning point that leads to the climax of this journey. We've reached the moment when all the pieces come together. Imagine combining the precise reasoning of YoungHoon Kim with the inspiring vision of Napoleon Hill. Logic and purpose, science and faith, discipline and passion. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, what seemed confusing becomes clear, and the path, once uncertain, reveals itself before you. This is the moment when the viewer realizes that it's not just about grand stories or distant achievements, but something they can live themselves. The difference between those who only dream and those who achieve is the decision to apply what they have learned, even in the face of fear or doubt. Here, the power of the mind meets the strength of the heart. The climax of this journey is understanding that true wealth is not just about having, but about being, and that purpose without action is just a wish. When the mind is trained and the spirit aligned, life stops being a series of coincidences and becomes an intentional construction. And now, the next step depends solely on the one watching. Now that you know this link between YoungHoon Kim and Napoleon Hill, don't let the knowledge sleep. Choose one concrete action to take today. Something small, but that represents the first step toward the life you want. Write your main goal on paper, read it aloud, and commit to it as if it were a contract with yourself. Don't wait for ideal conditions, because they never arrive ready. Hill said opportunity presents itself disguised as a challenge. And Kim adds that thinking only has value when it turns into action. Every day you delay, the cost increases, not just in time, but in wasted energy and missed chances. So decide now, take action, even if it seems small at first. It's this decision that separates those who talk from those who achieve. Like the video. Comment, "My mind is trained for wealth," and share it with someone who needs to wake up to the life they deserve. Your next chapter starts today. Life is too short to live on autopilot. When we unite mental clarity and a higher purpose, we start to create, not just react. YoungHoon Kim and Napoleon Hill show that the greatest gift we can give ourselves is freedom, not just financial, but the freedom to think, decide, and act toward what truly matters. With each conscious decision, you write a new chapter in your story. The power to transform your reality is not in something external, but in your ability to live and feel each moment as part of building the future you desire. True wealth is the one you carry inside, and it inevitably reflects on the outside. If this video spoke to you, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. The world needs awakened people. Maybe you are one of them. Write in the comments. My mind is trained for wealth. Remember, every thought you cultivate is a seed. Choose to plant what you want to harvest.